Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Big Ranker here, and I'm back with my NRL reviews. This is round six review. It's 6 games in. Everyone's played a quarter of their matches, so I thought it was a good time to have a look at the table and the ranks. So here are the ranks after round six and the positions the teams have changed from. So you've got top eight. Raiders have slotted up one into first position. The Sharks have jumped up 4 into number 2. The Dragons up 5. The Storm, they were obviously number 1. They've dropped down after that loss to the Sharks, back to number 4. The Broncos have moved up 4 again into number 5. The Panthers dropped down after their loss. The Eagles dropped after their loss, and the Roosters dropped as well. So that rounds out the top 8. The ninth team, the Cowboys, have dropped 2, but they're still close. And then the rest of them, they seem to be really falling out of the ranks. So the Bulldogs have moved up 2, the Titans have down 1, the Rabbitohs up 1, Warriors up 1, Eels down 3, Tigers up 1, Knights down 1. So there's a lot of action there. Every team has moved up or down a rank. But if you have a look at the overall progress of the ranks of the teams, which is what this graph shows, you can really see there's a bit of a separation in here between 9th and 10th. So what I'm seeing is this big bunch at the top. They're all sort of mostly upward trending, and the ones that are really showing themselves as the contenders after 6 rounds. And those bottom ones are all mostly downward trending and are not looking like they're in form, are not looking like the good teams of the competition for this part of the season. Still a long way to go, but this is what the data is showing and the trends. What I'm going to do now is go through the top 9 teams, just highlight them so you can see how they've progressed over the first 6 weeks. And the reason I'm doing 9 is because of this gap, like what I'm saying here, the 9th team is in this gap up here. So the first team, number 1, the Raiders, you can see they're a pretty stable season, slightly upward trending. Even though they're only mid-table, they had one big loss here against the Sharks that took them down. Then the rest of their losses have been 1-point losses against other pretty competent teams. So overall, their trend is up and they're looking like a decent team, and that's why they're number 1. Number 2 is the Sharks. This shows that they're a bit up and down so far this season, but overall from this point, they're trending in the right direction. And that strong win, even though it was only a 9-point win, a strong win to keep the Storm to tryless and to beat them by 9 points in a match where only 13 points were scored. That has given them a big boost, and that's why they're number 2 now. Third in the ranks, the Dragons. Now, these are the best performing or the most improved team. Obviously, you can see where they started, second from the bottom. No one was giving them a hope. I certainly wasn't giving them a hope, but strong win after strong win, they are really climbing up, and they're a deserved 3rd rank. The Storm, they're a strong team, strong competitors. They'll be there towards the end of the season, you would imagine. They're not playing great footy, but they're getting away with the wins, or as we saw on the weekend, they got done by the Sharks. But overall, they're still a strong team. I think 4th is actually probably legitimate ranking for them in terms of how they're playing. We'll see how they bounce back. 5th are the Broncos, and you can see it's a pretty flat line for most of the season. A bit of a dip down, then a bit of a peak up. So they're doing well. They're about where they should be. And I think 5th is about a decent rank for the Broncos. It's interesting to see how they will respond to losing some of their key players, and also every season is a question of how they go during the State of Origin period. The Panthers is an interesting one where I thought my ranks had them starting probably a bit too high up here, and they have dipped down, and then they've ended up pretty much about the same point at the moment. They're doing well. They're very up and down, as you can see by that. They're having wins against teams they should, and then losing against teams they shouldn't. So it's hard to know with the Panthers at this stage. It's still early days in my mind. The Eagles. Oh, look at this. So these they started down the bottom half of the ranks, and they didn't start too well, and they looked like they were going to have a horrible season. At this point, I remember saying, look, they're on a massive downward trend, because they were, and that's continuing from last season. And then all of a sudden, they have turned it up, thrashed the Cowboys, had a couple of good results, but then they go from here and they get beaten pretty convincingly by the Rabbitohs. So the Eagles, I honestly have no idea about at the moment how to pick them. Seventh, I really can't even tell if that's a good rank or not for them. But that's where they are, according to my algorithm. The eighth team, so rounding out my top eight of the ranks, are the Roosters, and I think that's decent ranking there. So you can see overall slightly up from where they started the season. They'd started well with 4 wins on the trot, but now a couple of losses, and people are talking about in the media a lot of how they haven't won a second half and all that. Like, they've not dominated or controlled a full match yet. So I think an 8th rank for the Roosters is pretty accurate. And I'm going to do the 9th one, like I said, because the Cowboys round out those top 9 teams that are bunched. And, the Cowboys are on a bit of a downward slope here. They're at risk of dropping out of contention of my top 8 ranks and heading towards that bottom group. They've had a few unlucky or close matches and a few things like that. So I'm not willing to write them off yet, but I think they're in the danger zone for missing the 8 and in my ranks. And once again, same as the Broncos, how they go with injuries to people like Thurston, Matt Scott, and how they deal with State of Origin will really, really determine how they go for this season. I'm not going to go for the rest of the teams. They're all struggling pretty much, the other 7 teams. So this is the overall picture of the ranks. I want to show you a different view I'm looking at as well. So you can see this is pretty noisy in terms of every week creates a big spike of some teams and a big dip of other teams. So I've got another graph which shows the same data, but just taking a more of a rolling average of 3 rounds to try to get not just the rank as of this week, but more of a how has the form been over the last 3 weeks. And here's how this one looks. So it's a lot flatter and it's a lot more stable. And you can see here that overall that changes a little bit because it keeps the Storm at the top. Still pretty strong. The Raiders, they're number 2, Sharks number 3, and the Panthers still make it into 4th. This graph does still show that there is a big gap between there. So I'm looking at both of these graphs. I bet off this first one more because I feel like it's getting the latest form, but I like looking at this just to see who's in form, and you can see most of them are flat, but then the trends are starting to appear of the teams heading down or the teams heading up. And this graph gives me a bit more of a feel for that. So that's how I use my ranks. That's the update after round 6. And so a quarter of the way through the season. And that's all I've got. Let me know if you like this kind of video. And yeah, subscribe to my channel. Send me a message. Give me a like or dislike, whatever. And then until next time, good luck.